Hello everybody and welcome to NBL Overtime. 4 teams done and dusted, only 4 remain for the fight for the 2018-19 NBL Championship. The Gala Awards are done and dusted. Some remarkable, well, to be honest, I can't even say Kerry Williams without laughing, so we're going to get to that again very shortly. Andrew Bogut's our MVP. A legend has stood down. Andrew Gay is no longer the coach of the Sydney Kings. Once they're done and dusted, but still they remain in the fight to be the champions. You can get involved any time you like. Hashtag NBL Overtime, hashtag NBL 19. Without Kerry Homicide Williams tonight, we are joined by a superstar, a legend of the NBL, now doing a wonderful job as a media commentator, and he has kept the Jersey streak alive. I, of course, talk of Mark Worthington. Wortho, my man, welcome.
Thank you for having me. And yes, there is a story. Corey loves to wear his jerseys, and because Drewy, we knew, mutually agreed with his club, I thought I'd throw it back to another Melbourne Tigers legend who mutually agreed to leave his club in Chris Anstey and wear his old school Dallas Mavericks uniform.
Mutual agreements are an interesting one, or at least mutual agreements to split is an interesting one, both in basketball and in relationships. But we'll talk about what it actually means over the next couple of hours. Liam Sandemar, as always, mate, welcome to you.
Thanks, Cam. Thanks, Wortho, coming in. They're very poignant. Right on point. And is that Basketball Jersey World or?
No. Go to Chris Anstey's wardrobe and tell him that Wortho sent you.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, looking forward to stalking, just wandering around the former big man's house. All right, let's talk a little bit about how this regular season ended, because we went into the weekend not knowing who was going to finish first, second or third. We all thought that Melbourne were going to do the job and have a chance on Sunday against Perth at home. It didn't work out that way. Cairns, who played really well on the weekend, Sydney got their job done to finish third, and that New Zealand-Brisbane was it was a battle for the last 6 weeks, and New Zealand almost ruined the party on Saturday night, but on Thursday, how about this? Talk about scoring a hell of a lot of points. It's what we like to see, an NBL record for the 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was wild scoring. This game was pretty wild as well. Casper obviously had the...
What did you make of the shot?
To win it. I thought Barlow could have just dropped it back to Barlow, 45% from 3, and he was wide open on the arc.
And this was the big one. Adelaide had a double-digit lead for a lot of this game, but late in the game, Bryce Cotton-Worth, as we've seen so much, is able to do what he did, and that's why he was the fans' MVP.
He was amazing. And how about this game? Sydney Kings getting it done, and that man, Andrew Bogut, there's a reason he's the MVP with plays like that.
And a very nice touch as well, Alex Loudon, who you know particularly well, Wortho, and that jersey will hang from the Cairns rafters very shortly, but a very nice gesture, not only by the Taipans, by the Sydney Kings as well, to acknowledge what has been an outstanding career. And in fact, a really good weekend for Alex Loudon. Played well in both games, set the tone early against Melbourne. And now he joins you on the sidelines, Wortho, but this was big. Late, Patterson, all NBL first team, shuts the gate. Brisbane Bullets are into the playoffs for the first time in a long time.
I was impressed with the way the Breakers played in that game. And, yeah, Patterson closed it out. And I like this play from Kennedy. He had a couple of cracks at it, surrounded, found Melbourne's main man. We always talk about Casper Ware, but, boy, didn't Chris Golding step up when they needed him, right there to send it to OT and there to lock in the victory, stepping up just like you did in last year's Grand Final series.
And now it's all said and done. We have Perth as the minor champions who finished the year particularly well and beating the teams they're going to face over the next couple of weeks in Sydney and Melbourne in particular. Then, of course, we did see Melbourne there in overtime finish second, Sydney third, Brisbane fourth. We'll see the NBL semi-final start Thursday week. But the regular season is done and dusted, and it now means, while we talk about these 4 teams, there's so much posturing about what's going to happen off court, and there's so much intrigue and drama now around the NBL. I love it. But personally, I love it a great deal. But we might just go back to what happened on Sunday night. We were all there. We actually did a little bit of NBL overtime from the Gala Award as well. What was your favourite moment from the NBL Gala?
For me, it's really simple. Leonard Copeland, that Hall of Fame speech, he got up, he spoke really well, and just a legend of the game. Probably got overshadowed with how good he actually was because he was playing next to Andrew Gaze, but that guy could flat out ball, and he would tell you about it too.
For sure.
Tell you what, these are some nice pictures from obviously Sunday night. None yet of the NBL overtime crew, which is interesting. What stood out for you, Liam?
What stood out? Well, obviously Copes. Wear my Dolce. Kerry Williams, the stylist, his jacket stood out right across the room. Justin Kessman was also looking very, very sharp in his get-up. And, yeah, of course, Andrew Bogut as well. I mean, that was the big award. And We knew it was probably going to come down to those top three. I was happy to see all three of those guys were the top vote getters. And whilst the Red Army aren't happy that Bryce Cotton didn't get it, I was pleased to see the bogeyman get it. He's just had such a massive impact this season.
You and I both predicted this earlier into the year that Andrew Bogut would probably be the MVP. It turns out to be. Biggest snub of the night, or at least the biggest surprise, and the Red Army, who, of course, are so huge on social media, talking to Bryce Cotton, who in fact finished third in the most valuable play. If you haven't seen the voting, Casper Ware was second. I think it's Trevor Gleeson missing out on Coach of the Year. I think Dean Vickerman has done a wonderful job, and to go back-to-back Coach of the Year, but Trevor Gleeson, we sat here all year, injuries to the Wildcats, they need a second import, they're in all sorts. They've won another minor premiership. For mine, not to diminish Coach Vickerman, but I reckon Trevor Gleeson was stiffer to miss Coach of the Year than Bryce Cotton was to win the MVP.
I 100% agree with you. And like you said, Dino had a fantastic season at the Melbourne United helm, but you got to think about all the obstacles that Trevor had. And then there was that external pressure of that third import. Is he going to come in? Damian Martin's down. Then they lose their other point guard at the end of the season. It was just piling on top of each other, but somehow they found a way. They get themselves up to the top of the ladder. They give themselves a home final, and everyone in the league knows once they're at home, they're the toughest team to beat in the league.
Yeah. The biggest shock of the night was Andrew Bogut not going up to receive his Defensive Player of the Year award and sending Dame Pinot up. The biggest snub, I mean, Trevor Gleeson, I would agree with you that he was probably, pretty deserving. But going into the awards night, I thought that was probably going to be apart from MVP, that was probably going to be the closest vote, to be honest, because I didn't think there was like a real standout, obvious choice for Coach of the Year this year. There were a bunch of guys that would have had pretty legitimate claims to it. Gleeson, Vickerman, of course. We saw Drew was in the top three vote getters, but Andre Lamanis got that team into the playoffs from 2 wooden spoons in a row into the finals. And we also thought, a few weeks back, maybe Rob Beveridge would be a guy you'd talk about for that award as well with what he'd been able to do with that team. So for me, the biggest surprise was that Ruben Tarangi took home both best six-man and most improved. I thought Jordan Jet was going to win six-man, and I thought Nick Kay or Dave Barlow were the two guys that were going to win most improved. But you can't take anything away from that because, in essence, the coaches, the captains, they sit down, they vote against the guys they've coached against or played against all year, and clearly Tarangi had really impressed.
I think there's no doubt. I think we've touched on this on the show before. I think the very fact is that the coaches and the captains sit down and half ignore the criteria. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're like, while Barlow and Nick Kay were both eligible, I think they thought that, they've had outstanding careers. While the criteria allows them to be a part of the most improved, I think they might have just thought they've done some really good things. And Nick Kay's year this year was outstanding for the Perth Wildcats, and that's why Tarangi won it. And that's been an ongoing conversation amongst a lot of people that should a guy who's won 4 championships and been a high-scoring player and played in the Olympics, be eligible for the most improved player? And I think that is where the coaches and the captains actually thought when they did their vote.
When I went back and thought about it, I absolutely agreed with him as most improved player.
Barlow or Tarangi?
Tarangi.
Yep.
For the simple fact that he was a bad basketball player last year. Like, he was in the lower echelon of players that you didn't have to worry about. And he turned himself into a genuine star this year. His ability to score, defend, he was crucial to the Brisbane Bullets. And I'm not saying that he was... Obviously, you play in the NBL, so you're not terrible, but he was an afterthought for a lot of teams. He wouldn't have been high on the scouting report. He became... This guy comes on in big minutes and makes big plays. We have to look after this guy. So... Looking back on it, I was pretty happy with that choice.
Yeah, and I like he's a great story because he's another guy that's been a development player, come into the league as a young guy, played for a number of years, has had that P word hanging over his name, potential, for a number of years, and the Breakers parted ways and said, well, you know what, we've seen this out for a fair while, maybe go and explore elsewhere. Lamanis snatched him up. He came out of contract at the end of last year after that kind of poor season, and his arrow didn't seem to be pointed upwards, but really knuckled down, got to work. I was chatting with assistant coach Mick Downer earlier in the season. He said, oh my God, he's just put in the work. We kind of made some structural changes to his stroke, but really it's been his ability to get in, put in the hours, and now he is a sniper, and you cannot leave him open.
The next step for Ruben Tarangi, once this whole thing's done, semi-finals and a possible grand final for Brisbane, is to work on expressing himself a little bit better, because while he did win 2 awards, he said 9 words over 2 speeches. Yes. Come on, Ruben. You've just won 2 awards. There's a Gala Awards night. You're in the finals.
Right.
Have a bit of excitement about yourself, young man.
It was hard to hear. I didn't know exactly what he said, but instead of thanking Andrea Lamanis, didn't he thank Jason Kadee for living with him?
Yeah.
Yep. He thanked Jason Kadee for living for, and then when he went to get the second award, he said, "I've already said what I want to say. Give me the trophy. I'm back down by the whiskey bar."
Come on, Rubes. Give us something.
It was a wonderful night. Your favourite memory of the awards or gala night, if you're there or not, let us know. Hashtag NBL Overtime at NBL on Twitter. All right, the coaching merry-go-round is an interesting one, because yesterday in Adelaide advertiser, this Joey Wright, who has still got 3 years to go on a 5-year contract, and I quote, exploring his options. The rumours around Rob Beveridge of the Illawarra Hawks have been around for a while, and he's kind of fueled it a couple of days ago, and I'm paraphrasing this, but he said, I might be here, I might not be here. And today we know that Andrew Gaze will not be at the Sydney Kings once this is all said and done in maybe a couple of games or a couple of series time for the men in purple. It is interesting. What did you take on the Andrew Gaze situation first? Well,
it didn't come as a massive surprise that he decides he wants to spend more time with his family. He's a big family man. We know Drewy. That's so important to him, spending that time. And being with the Kings, he's been up there away from his crew and spending a lot of time living alone and not with them. And it's a stressful endeavour. And it didn't come as a surprise to me that at the end of this 3-year deal, he was going to say, no matter win, lose or draw, I'm going to change things up and do that. The timing was, for me, the surprise. And, I think that's sort of what shocked most people. And then the question is, well, why? Why now? Why come out and say it? And for me, we talked about this earlier today, and I've had a bit of a think about it. There's no one more genuine. What you see is what you get in sports than Andrew Gaze. He's never really been like a guy who's cared much about what the media or other people kind of say about him. He's just lay it out there, I am who I am. And I think he's just looked at this situation and gone, there's talk and rumour and innuendo. The team's going into a final series. This team's a genuine chance to take out a title. If there's any chance all this talk about me could be any kind of distraction, I'm just going to take that away. I'm just going to lay it out there, try to take the focus off me. It'll be on him for today and tomorrow and maybe a couple of days, but when the games roll around, it'll be off him, on the team. They can go about having a crack at this thing.
Mark Fisher off Twitter, do you think Andrew Gaze's announcement hurts the Kings' chances in the semi-finals? Or I'll even add to that by saying, does it enhance in that whole let's do it for jury type of way? Or do you not think it's just totally neutral and it is what it is and they'll play
No, it's not neutral. You're in a team, it has effect. Yeah. But I think it helps. I think it takes away the any distraction of that. And he's not going to make it about do it for me.
No. So by virtue of the distraction being away, it can enhance their chances of playing.
Yeah,
better.
I think so.
What do you think, Werther?
I'm really torn with this one. I think it actually puts a little bit more pressure on them. We say that it takes the pressure away. I think it's there. It's not just your average coach. It is Andrew Gaze that we're talking about. This will be talked about till the end. So it's not going to be the questions of is he or is he not going to be here. They're not going to be there anymore. But the question of, all right, where's the investment now? Like, you've got a title to win, but we know this guy's on the way out. I just worry about where the chemistry that lies with the team. And no matter what happens, like you said, probably after 3 years he was saying, I'm done, like, good on him. But at the same time, you sort of want your coach to be invested and be there right to the end. Players make announcements early to try and create motivation. Does it work the same as a coach?
I think the question of investment, I don't think that's going to be that. We know Drew, he is an elite competitor. He's a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and he's a bit of a larrikin at times, but he is a competitive beast.
I have seen him lose his stuff, losing to Copes in dominoes after a game. So I agree with the competitiveness and all of that, but I just worry about the timing. I think that should have been left to the end of the season and just handle your responsibilities as a coach to this point.
Joey Wright exploring options as the Adelaide 36ers end their season for the first time in a few years, actually. Of course, grand finalists and the minor champions a couple of years before that. If you look at it, Joey Wright exploring options. Rob Beveridge, we're expected to know in the next couple of days either which way, if he's actually going to coach the Illawarra Hawks or how that will all play out. So we expect in the next 72 hours, if you believe the rumour mill and the correct people speaking. But Joey Wright's the interesting one because he's got 3 years on a 5-year deal, but he does have history of Jeff Van Groningen, who, of course, is the basketball operations manager of the Sydney Kings, which is always... Well, he was the coach of the Bullets, who Jeff Van Groningen put that team together that won in 07.
07.
I'm not suggesting that's definitely going to happen, but that will be the conversation over the next couple of weeks until Joey Wright says either which way, where is he going to go. Do you think Joey Wright will coach the 36ers next year?
That's a good question.
When you say exploring other options and you've got 3 years left on a 5-year deal...
It doesn't sound good, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It's kind of amazing that we're having this conversation for a guy that's got 3 years left on his deal, because who walks away from that kind of security in the coaching realm?
I'm assuming someone who has a pretty good deal somewhere else, maybe, in principle.
He's also been pretty clear over the journey, pretty open about his desire to coach at the NBA level. We've spoke to him over at Summer League when he was spending time with the Utah Jazz and says, so what, is this something that... So, of course, I'm just like a player who wants to play at the NBA level. I would love to coach. This is the highest standard in the world. It's the highest standard for players. It's the highest standard for coaches. So you can't hold that against him. I don't know the ins and the outs of his contract, whether he's got an NBA out or things. I think it would be surprising to see him not coaching the Adelaide 36ers, but coaching another team in the NBL. When you got 3 years left on a deal, that would surprise me. But would it surprise me to see him stateside instead of in Adelaide? Probably not.
I'm going to guess there's a little bit of frustration at the moment, and he didn't look like he was enjoying himself this year. I think, you know, he's a passionate guy. He gets into it. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't this year. I think if we were to lose Joey in the NBL, I think it's a sad day.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
because he is one of the greater characters that we have. Good, bad, or indifferent. You have an opinion about Joey Wright. You're invested. You love him or you hate him, and there is not much grey area in between. So I think there's frustration right now, and we need to let it breathe a little bit. It's fresh. The regular season just finished. His team's not in it. I think there would be a little bit of tension there. I don't know if the Mitch Creek thing plays into it as well with what happened in the off-season. But I'd expect Joey just to take a bit of time, and we won't know with Joey for a while.
It'll be interesting with the Mitch Creek because that got a little bit messy, as we know, once he ended up in Brooklyn. I wonder if a similar thing would happen with Joey Wright, because there would be maybe compensate if he was to go to the NBA or to a college team or to the NBL. It would be interesting to see how the owners and the board actually played it out, considering how it went with Mitch Creek.
Obviously, I want Joey to do whatever works for Joey.
Agree.
But personally, selfishly, I'd love to see him stick with that Adelaide. Work it out there in Adelaide. Everybody get on the same page and keep going, because what I love about... I mean, he's an elite coach. He's an elite coach in terms of getting wins. He didn't quite get this team into the finals, but boy, did he go close. And he's done that year after year after year in the NBL. But he's also an elite development coach. And to see him spend more time with guys like Harry Froling and Jack McVeigh, and also, you know, obviously they've re-signed Jacob Wiley, who is a Joey Wright type of guy. I'd love to see him continue with that team and grow with them.
I'd go one step here. He's an elite recruiter. He's been able to pick talent from other teams and bring them over and make them really good. Think of Nathan Sobey when he was in Cairns. He was a nobody. He was a development player at the end of the bench, gave him an opportunity, and now he's a superstar of our league. Chris Golding, he saw Chris Golding before everyone else saw Chris Golding, brought him into the fold at the Bullets and then the Blaze. He knew what Chris Golding was going to be. So his eye for talent is the best in the league, in my opinion.
All right, there's four.
The other one, obviously, is Rob Beveridge, right?
Yes.
You talked about him before.
What do you think?
My understanding is it's his option. He's got the option for next year in Illawarra. So when you say he's making comments about, well, I might be here, I might not, he's literally mulling that over because it's his option to decide. Obviously, you mentioned 72 hours. We're interested to see what happens in the next few days. I'm interested to see the Illawarra dinner on Friday night, that Hawks team dinner. He's going to have the opportunity to get up and speak to the team, everyone within that organisation. Will be interesting to see how that plays out.
I would actually think that the decision has been made either which way by Friday night. I think that he will make a speech at the awards night or the dinner saying, let's do this again, or I've loved my time and I'm looking for the next challenge, or whatever it might be, but I think it'll be done by Friday. Bad losses for non-finals team and regrets over the course of the year because, honestly, the NBL is so tight. And we talk about Adelaide missing out on, essentially Lamar Patterson 3. There's been so many opportunities and moments over the course of the year. And we look at the big moments. Look at that one. That essentially, going back, has decided who plays playoffs and who doesn't.
That was a huge 3 from Cam Glidden, and that's the one for me. That's the one that Adelaide... This one, Brisbane, you could have been higher up the ladder if you take care of Cairns Taipans. You just get the job done. And they couldn't get... That was their bogey team this year, the Cairns Taipans. They have... How many wins they end up with for the season? 5?
Six. 3 were to Brisbane.
And 3 were against Brisbane, you know. And then you probably think about that Tom Abercrombie game winner as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's 4 games right there, and now you're in contention with the big dogs.
Well, they're in the finals, though.
They're in the finals, but they're games that you go back and you go, we should have handled our business.
Yep.
If we're able to handle our business...
We should have double-teamed Cotton as he was coming off that pitch.
Exactly. All that sort of stuff. And, I think Brisbane look back at it. We should have had a home final this year if we had just taken care of a business.
This is a big one for me because it all came down to home court advantage, which I think is a huge one. Mitch McCarron, the tip in that wonderful game in late November where the United were able to get over the Kings, and that's been a huge one. And if you look the other way, well, that's the difference between first, second and third. Casper Ware puts that in 1 million times out of 1 million almost.
But there are so many swings, and when the league is so tight like this, there are so many swings and roundabouts. Obviously, Melbourne would have loved to have taken care of business in this game on Thursday night. They would be sitting on top of the table, but... It goes around and it comes around. You think about Perth, they got first place because of percentage, right?
Yeah.
Well, how much percentage did they drive up when they beat Illawarra by 40? Less than 48 hours, I think it was, after Illawarra went to quadruple. Now,
first Sunday of the season.
They went to quadruple overtime. They had to fly across the Nullarbor. Yeah. And they just didn't have. I mean, they just didn't have it at all. And Illawarra, if that wasn't a 40-point drubbing, they probably don't finish on top.
True.
Melbourne came down. They didn't have the legs. They lost to New Zealand. Those close ones, those super close ones, I go, look, that could just go. And the guy makes the shot, he misses the shot, it happens. For me, it's those games where the team, they just didn't show. They just didn't show up, and they didn't bring what they needed to bring. We've spoken about it on the show before. New Zealand, when they were rolling and they had a double away weekend, one in Illawarra, one in Cairns, and they came away with no wins from that weekend. They were super disappointing losses, and that was a team that had struggled to really get themselves going, but were on a roll, and we could be seeing them in the postseason had they taken care of business.
That was actually, incidentally, the weekend where Liam Santamaria called out their body language, which is 100%. We watched some vision. And then the next day, Kevin Braswell got a couple of calls on it as he was celebrating his birthday. So Liam Santamaria ruined Kevin Braswell's birthday because of NBL Overtime and body language vision we watched after that loss in Cairns, which was a close game in the fourth quarter. You would have been there for Fox Sports, and you're in the fourth quarter, and the body language is the lowest I've seen of almost any team this year.
Well, they were in Cairns just a few weeks prior and got the job done. It came down, Cairns, I think, were up 3 points at three-quarter time, and New Zealand rolled over them, and it just had that same feeling again. Cairns were just in front at three-quarter time, but then New Zealand just stopped playing, gave up completely. Then you've got Sean Long rolling at that time. They go away from Sean Long. Nothing made sense in that game. You said it. New Zealand was the biggest disappointment of the year. Hands down. With the roster that they had, they should have done way better than what they did. But now they sit back. They probably lost an opportunity because you don't get too many Sean Longs coming into our league.
Oh, that's true.
And, there's going to be other clubs circling him.
Oh, 100%.
They're like...
Here and elsewhere.
Why would I go back to New Zealand? I did not enjoy my... I'm assuming I didn't enjoy my time there with the wins and losses. Where I know what Sydney's got, what Melbourne's got. I know what Brisbane... there's Melbourne, the Phoenix.
Hey,
they're putting together a roster.
Why wouldn't you be talking to Sean Long? Absolutely would. We didn't talk about the Taipans, right? Obviously, because they were a long way away from it for most of the season. But think back to their fourth game. They were 1-2. They'd won in Brisbane. They'd lost 2 games. Then they went to Sydney and went to OT. Now, had they snatched that game on the road in overtime, they would have been 2-2. Instead, they were 1-3, and they went on to lose 14 games in a row.
Didn't win another game till middle of January, which is remarkable.
Hard to commentate.
No doubt. And,
you did a sterling job.
He did a sterling job up there. What I will say, I agree, the Cam Glidden one. I know, and there's a million moments in any sporting season, but Cam Glidden actually hit a game winner against the team that they ended up knocking out of that playoff race on Saturday night. All right, let's have a look at the 4 teams that obviously are now on holidays and a fair bit to play out before the new season when it comes to free agent and contract status. But Adelaide, New Zealand, Illawarra and Cairns are now looking towards the new season, although it's a while away. Let's have a look at this. So contracted there, Johnson, Drimmick, McVeigh, Wiley re-signed a couple of weeks ago, which is great news. The free agent, I think the big one there, obviously, boy, is Nathan Sobey, who continues to be linked to South East Melbourne Phoenix, although Ben Madgen signed today. What do you think?
Well, let me start by saying I think the 36ers over the last couple of years have done a great job of re-signing some big names early in the piece. They did it last season with Daniel Johnson. Didn't let him get into the free agent market at all. They just extended him, and they've done the same thing with Jacob Wiley, because if you talk about South East Melbourne, why wouldn't, you got Mitch, but Mitch can play the 3, Jacob Wiley at the 4. I mean, would there be any more high-energy duo and a great way to start your culture? So they didn't let that happen. Hats off to them. It's interesting that hasn't happened yet with Nathan Sobey. I expected that to be done by now. So clearly that hasn't, and it's still up in the air.
He's got a couple of months in France right now. I want to ask you about Demetrius Conger. Do you expect him to be back, though?
Well, before we go to Demetrius, Majok Deng's the other one linked to the Phoenix. So there's potentially 2 Adelaide guys going to the Phoenix. I don't expect Demetrius Conger to come back.
Were you disappointed with what you saw last year compared to this year at the 36ers?
Absolutely. I mean, there's like night and day. His energy and effort levels. And I think he got shown up because there is so many energy guys in that team. And if you're not putting forth the effort, it's really, really noticeable. And he didn't have the effort this year. Brendan Teese, that's all going to be dependent on Joey Wright, because we know wherever Joey goes, Teesey goes. So
you reckon Teese could be in the NBA next year?
Possibly. Possibly.
I'd expect them to snap up those club options, though, on Froling and even Ramon Moore.
Yeah.
You got 3 imports.
He's always been the lowest profile of the imports, Ramon Moore, but his time in Adelaide has been extremely good.
Really good.
And then Adam Doyle, if you've got the player option, you are taking that in a heartbeat.
No doubt. Next.
Who's up next?
There we go, Cairns. So I didn't know if we were going in order, and clearly we weren't. All right, so Lowe, Kenny contracted. Mello Trimble, of course, their star. All-NBL second team announced on Sunday night. Jowai, of course, Newell. You're the man who watches more Cairns than probably anyone, Wertho. Where do you start there? Obviously, Mello Trimble's where you go first.
I think Nate Jowai is where you go first.
Okay.
Because I think he's a bigger figure, just as big a figure off the court than on the court for your club. He's a great Indigenous ambassador for the club. Obviously, Mello Trimble is right up there with him, but you might be priced out of the market. For me, if I'm the Cairns Taipans, unfortunately, you've been shown that this year didn't work with veterans. You are the CQU University Taipans. You're a community club. I'm going after all the best young talent that's unhappy in college or coming out of college. I'm saying, you're going to get playing time here at our club. That gives you more money to go and get Mello Trimble again. I'm probably keeping DJ Newell. He was sensational this year. But it gives you more money to go get a quality 3rd import and say, we're almost going to be like a feeder club. We're going to be happy if one of our young stars goes off and gets a big contract somewhere else, because that's where we're developing them. And I'd love to see that from the Taipans. I think they've just got to change tact a little bit, because the one thing about the Orange Army is they're passionate. And they're passionate if you work hard. If you've got a bunch of young kids working hard, that's a team you can really get behind.
Well, let me piggyback on that by talking about Kwani, because I think he's quite interesting. Coming into this year, I thought, oh, well, this is the last year of his deal. He hasn't seen a lot of time. I wonder how much he's come along. Didn't see what you would have seen him in the QBL, but I hadn't. And I've been super impressed with his energy and effort and his impact when he's come into the game. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him suiting up again for the Orange next season, whereas coming into the year, I probably didn't think I would be saying that. And I totally agree about DJ Newell. In the same line as Ramon Moore, that's a guy you go, okay, well, the Trimble thing might take a while, but let's see if we can lock Newell up early in the piece. And now we know some of the pieces we've got and start building from there.
As we look towards the next team, I would love to tell you, here we go, Illawarra, Blanchfield, of course, Daniel Greeter, new boomer, of course, on the road. Conrad also over there, and Emmett Nair all contracted. Where do you go first here, boys? Didn't work this year when it come to the... And they actually had a really good year. We're in playoff race for the last couple of weeks, and in fact, had Brisbane cold, except for a couple of interesting situations, and Jordan Jet misses a couple of foul shots, and Lamar Patterson, you know, knocks it on the head. But if you're the Illawarra Hawks, I'll start with you, Wertho. Where do you go? What are you thinking? Do you try Conklin? Do you try and bring AJ Ogilvy back first? Is it Jordan Jet who had a good year off the bench without setting the world on fire?
No, you don't bring him back.
No.
I'm probably... Dave Anderson said wants to go around again. I'm re-signing Dave Anderson in a heartbeat. He's a great locker room guy. Kev White, I'm locking him up for another season. Once again, a strong vocal leader of his group. Everyone else, and Marshall Nelson, I should say. We're going to keep Marshall Nelson. Okay. I think the other four are in trouble. I don't think they're coming back. I don't think the 3 imports worked this year for him. And AJ, he's fallen off the face of the earth with where he wanted to be and where that club probably expected him to be, but he didn't reach this season.
I think, which makes Ogilvy a very interesting free agent because he's a very, you know, like there's talent there. It's about putting him in a position to really succeed, making him super motivated and happy and comfortable and putting him in a position to go for it. So it'd be interesting to see where he lands. I would have no problem bringing back Brian Conklin.
Had a really good year. We spoke about this last week. I think Conklin had a really good year.
Within a roster that was kind of clunky with the way that it worked. A non-shooting import backcourt. Put him with the right pieces like we saw happen in Townsville. Like, I think he fits quite well with that group of 4 that are currently contracted. Greeter, Blanchfield and Conrad are all guys who can shoot the ball. Emmett Nair's a great playmaker off the pick and roll. You're finding Conklin rolling to the rim, popping. I don't think we saw much of Conklin with Emmett Nair on the floor together this season. I'd like to see that a bit more.
If they could spread, and you touched on the fact the backcourt couldn't shoot a 3 to save themselves. We knew that coming in as well, and they stood by. Rob Beveridge said, no one likes our roster. We're going to prove you all wrong. And for a lot of the year, they probably played the way we thought, but they won games, which is a testament to them and, of course, Rob Beveridge. But Conklin, if he is on a team, be it this team or another one in the NBL, where you are able to spread the floor and have 3-point shooters, it gives him more room to operate. His mid-range is probably his limit, but that's also, as you said, Townsville, when he was MVP, he was actually to be able to be extremely effective. So I would expect that Brian Conklin will still be in the NBL next year, Illawarra otherwise. And lastly, the New Zealand Breakers, who I think a lot of people thought, considering the list of players they had going in, were a little bit disappointing. And they were probably the first of the main teams to be eliminated from the playoffs. Webster, Abercrombie, Shaili, Weeks, Delaney. Some of these guys that weren't great this year at different times, all under contract. Sean Long and Ty Wesley, probably the 2 main ones down the other side.
Well, Webster and Abercrombie both signed 3-year deals last off-season, so those guys have 2 years to go each. So you got to keep that into consideration as you're building your roster. We've talked about how, and you said on the broadcast the other night, I think. Or maybe it was Trigger, sorry, I got you. I think I might have got you in first.
Oh, gee.
Roger Ramjet.
There it is.
Jesus.
About looking for the Breakers to have an import point guard next season. And Shaili as the starter hasn't really worked to the extent that they might like. But they've got both those guys, Illy and Weeks, locked in for another year each. So that makes that a bit difficult.
You almost can't get an import point guard. And while I agree wholeheartedly what you suggested, Illy and Weeks under contract means one of them won't play next year.
Right.
And now Weeks was really good off the bench, and now he's playing for Australia. And Shea Illy, while wasn't great offensively and didn't shoot the ball anywhere near as well as I think he could have, defensively he did have his moments as well. So are you going to force one of them out of the rotation? I'd be surprised if they changed tact after only one season, although I think it would help the team.
I think they're a little handcuffed at the moment, but if I'm the New Zealand Breakers, I'm going to go get myself a 2/1 a la Bryce Cotton sort of mould that you can take off the ball and make him your shooter, but then bring him on maybe to close games to be that point guard that Perth have in Bryce. So I'd be looking down that avenue as far as imports. I think it also gives opportunity more for Webster and Abercrombie probably to get more confidence to play a little bit more court time as well, knowing that they're not getting minutes. They knew that Amani Moore and Patrick Rashad were always there this year and probably played down to their standard. But obviously, the big two right there are Ty Wesley and Sean Long. You obviously want to get Sean Long back. You'd really like to get Ty Wesley back. They've proven that they can be the best 4-5 combination in the league when they were together and rolling. Obviously, all your marbles have to go there.
And I think you be patient with Sean Long. If you get a sense, like Melbourne did with Casper Ware, that he likes playing there, likes the coach, likes the setup, and if he doesn't get an NBA deal, he'd be willing to come back, I think you'd be patient, just like Melbourne did over the American summer with Casper Ware. Some news about Finn Delaney. He has signed a short-term deal with FMP Belgrade. One of your old teams?
No. I was in one of the smaller country towns of Serbia.
Okay. Yeah, so he's going to Serbia. That's the team, obviously. Jonah Bolden launched his pro career. Isaac Humphries had a short-term deal with them. He has signed that deal. Well, he's agreed to terms. My understanding is he's going to sign in the next couple of days. That's a guy who's contracted, on the rise, does have a Euro out in his deal. So it'll be interesting to see how well he goes in this last part with Belgrade, last part of the season over there. See if he can impress and whether he'll be back.
Now we get the matchup, the All-Aussie matchup in the Derby between Jock Landale and Finn Delaney.
Well, the news is the Kiwis aren't going to be happy claiming Finn Delaney.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Good point.
He's claiming the diesel.
NBL matchup.
At NBL today, of course, what we traditionally do is go early with things. So jump on at NBL right now. What's our poll? Who out of the non-finalists are going to finish high next year on the NBL ladder? We look at it right now. 36ers a mile in front of the Breakers, Illawarra, and not much help. Really, Cairns above Illawarra. Couldn't fit South East Melbourne Phoenix in there. Of course, a non-finalist this year, but they will be the fifth team next year. Do you agree early on that they're on the money, they're 61%?
It's so early, right?
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's Joey Wright dependent. That Adelaide one and the other, obviously Ty Wesley, Sean Long, they're the two big names for the Breakers.
Just on Sean Long, of course, all NBL second team on Sunday night, which was correctly predicted by one person on this panel over the course of the year. Big shout out to Kerry and Liam, who had him both in the first team. Where are we? Sanders watching. Liam Santamaria does not miss a beat, and of course he's done it all year, and it was no difference in the last round of the regular season. Liam, what did you see?
What did I see? It's all a bit of a fog at the moment.
You put this together Sunday afternoon, did you forgotten?
Well, the scoreboard broke. They scored so many points in New Zealand. Well, it wasn't all strawberries and cream for the Breakers here, as Jared Weeks tried to make the play in transition. Joe Weiss just chilling. Very, very comfortable. Look at this guy, the Red Army, telling Joey to calm down. It's a 6-point game, 11 seconds. He's telling Joey
that was weird.
How brave was he? Now, this is not mine. This is our producer guy, Neville, clearly does not like Pinky Joyce's stroke. Not happy with that. Chris was playing dodge 'em cars as he tried to attack the lane.
That's like an octopus setting up a deck chair.
Can we bring that back?
Can we bring that back?
That was Sean Long. Sean Long Insta stories. Safe to say that I'm going to add in All NBL Second Team Award. Won't be in my luggage, James Ennis style.
Is James Ennis in there? That was the All NBL first team.
That was All NBL first team.
Yeah, so there's the All NBL first team sits at the bottom of the Yarra River, up in the Docklands.
Well, where's Sean Long's All NBL second team trophy?
It shouldn't have been a surprise. If Sean Long watches NBL Overtime, he wouldn't have been surprised he was no longer in the first team. All right. You can get involved any time you like. Hashtag NBL Overtime, hashtag NBL 19. All right. Here we go. Photography _ by Gracie's. Should the Adelaide 36...
Underscore what?
Gracie's.
Okay.
Should the Adelaide 36ers promote Kevin Brooks to the coach if Joey Wright leaves? Well, he's got the footwear for it. Al Westover style. He won some championships with the cowboy boots. Look, I'm hoping Joey's going to be there. He certainly went on record earlier in the year and saying that KB would be an option, and he thinks he's a future head coach in the league. He even said maybe here, hopefully here in the next couple of years, which was an interesting thing to say. I don't know. Have you played
under KB?
I haven't, but I'd like to see Joey stay. But if he's not, I'll just go totally left field. Rupert Sapwell. Bring in a South Australian, a guy that played at the club, and a guy that's been doing a lot of good stuff in the junior programs there, and maybe give him an opportunity.
Okay, king of the bank shot.
King of the bank shot.
Is Nathan
the
Sobey...
and Tim Duncan.
Talking... We're back into it. Look, I'm going to yes or no on this one. Is Nathan Sobey good as gone to Phoenix with Adelaide not making the finals? We spoke a little bit about it, but yes or no answer. Yes or no? Yes?
As good as gone?
As good as gone.
No.
No? No? All right, so that means he's not as good as gone or he won't be there?
I'm saying there's still more water to go under the bridge.
Okay. All right. Hey, Ben Madgen did sign today. Just a quick one before we get to a question around Kerry Williams. Ben Madgen signed today, of course, All-NBL first team in 2013, led the league in scoring, and now at the South East Melbourne Phoenix. Good pick-up for the Phoenix, who continue to now will start to, I think, see more of what roster they're going to put together now as teams and the free agency officially opens. You know, and would have played a fair bit against him. What do you make of it?
I think it's a great pick-up, and the one thing about Ben, he's a great team guy. He's an elite with... his cardio work, so now you've got two guys in Mitch Creek and Ben Madgen that are elite in running up and down the court. I think it was a great pickup. Really, really, another guy that you just add to a piece of the puzzle. And as Corey would say, or Kerry would say, there's plenty more to come, apparently.
He is having some... Kerry's having some interesting words to say about South East Melbourne Phoenix. I don't know if he knows.
Maybe he's employed.
Well, that's something he tried to get when we had Tommy Beer on the show once, but not so sure. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think it was a great signing. Obviously, the challenge was there for Tommy and the Phoenix when free agency was not open here for the NBL players. They needed to go and get some high-level talent that wasn't playing here. Now, obviously, you're looking at the college guys coming back. We know there's always good talent coming back, but they needed to start with some veteran presence. So to lock up Mitch, obviously, we'll see how that plays out, but to get his signature was a great first step. And then they needed to get another guy or two, whether it was Brock Modem or Jock Landale or Ben Madgen or one of these type of guys, and they've locked one up and maybe more to come.
Just quickly off Instagram, there's a lot of mutual agreement contracts being thrown about at the moment. Do you know exactly what a mutual agreement or a mutual contract is when it comes to 1 year plus another in the NBL?
Yeah, so we were talking about it just before. It's a bit of a weird one, but it's where both parties need to agree. If there's one party, the club or the player is out and are not keen to re-up, deal's off. Deal's off.
Okay, cool. Now, just a lot of people who went nuts after Sunday night. Legitimately, his name is Kerry Williams. That is not a fake story, and you could never actually script that, to be honest, the story that he did tell us. But his name is Kerry Williams, and it shocked the entire NBL fraternity, except for the boss who signs their immigration or visa paperwork, who didn't even raise an eyebrow when we caught up with him after the show. But his name is Kerry Williams, but he isn't here, obviously, today. Now, he's in Darwin. He got to Darwin a little bit later than he was meant to, it's fair to say. Oh, yeah, he missed his flight out Monday morning, but he is in Darwin. And if you're on his Instagram, you'll know a little bit of what he's up to. But something happened this afternoon that nearly meant the end of one Kerry Williams. If you can play the footage, here he is. He's
he's a little jumpy. He's a little jumpy. I wish we had the audio.
Yeah, it's probably, since there are kids watching, it's probably safe there's no audio. But he's not.
Jeez, he's pretty close.
He's nervous too. He's got the body vision suit that we see on Instagram a lot that he works out in. Now he's asking the handler, is it safe? Should I be gone?
He said, that thing moves one little bit, I'm out of here.
Stay there, Kerry. Stay there, Kerry.
How about the bloke who's just literally...
toying with it.
He is, he's toying with it.
30 centimetres away.
And Kerry's not going any closer.
Does this have a happy ending? Oh, okay.
Look, I will give you a warning.
Everyone's okay?
Everyone is okay, but if you go on his Instagram story, he got extremely close to a crocodile that came out of a boat, and his language and his wording after, where he's like, "We are out."
I'm done.
And he is demanding to the tour guide to fire up the boat and get the hell out of there.
We're gone. We're done. Let's get out of here.
Don't let your kids watch his Insta stories, but it is very humorous. But we believe that Kerry Williams We'll be back next week. Oh, gee, anyway, that's it. I still can't actually say his name without laughing. I've laughed since he told us that story on Sunday. And we need to get to the bottom of how Andrew Bogut, in fact, because he is the one that actually outed Corey Williams.
I'm sticking with Corey, just by the way. That's what he wants. The man didn't have a good time with Carey.
You know what I like the most about it? What? Is that he grouped himself in with some of the greatest actors of all time. De Niro.
Yep.
Pitt. Eastwood.
Pacino.
Carey Williams. Okay. We might see with Corey. Either way, we're done and dusted, were they? Thank you, my man.
Good job, mate.
The 11, Chris Anstey jersey.
Good job,
Get down to Basketball Jersey World. Maybe, if not, find out where Anstey lives and we'll go from there. But until next week, as we lead into 2 monster semi-final series starting Thursday week. This has been NBL Overtime. Get involved at NBL, #NBL19. We will see you next Tuesday night from 6:30.